What's up guys, this is Gregory from photosincolor.com, and today I'm going to be telling you the 14 things you should do before you take a photograph. Okay, so let's jump right in. Item number 1 is always think about what is the final use of the image. Are you shooting for print? Are you shooting for web? Is it for somebody's portfolio? Is it for social media? Always have that in mind so that you're shooting for the right purpose. Okay, item number 2. Have an idea for what the ultimate final image is. What should that image or images actually look like? We don't want to turn up on set and just start shooting because you're kind of ready and you're just guessing. Try and have that target, that end goal that you're really striving to get. It will give you a great direction in the shoot. Okay, item number 3. This is really important and looks back at item number 2. Create a mood board. So once I've decided what the shoot is actually going to be and what the final image is going to be, I always want to create a mood board, and I use Pinterest, which is amazing. I share my boards with clients, we discuss, we talk about it, so that when we actually get to the set, I can actually pull out my phone and have a look at the feeling of the shot. So at this point, I know what the final image I want it to look like, and now I know the feeling of that image as well. Okay. Now got all those things sorted, we now want to start thinking about the actual camera, and we're going to think about the framing of the image. So what is it going to look like? Is the subject going to fill the frame? Is it going to be in the corner of the frame? Is it going to be a huge landscape with just a small subject or no subject at all? Really think about that. So that was number 4, and then that leads us to number 5, which is your lens choice. Don't just pull out a lens because that's what you shoot with. You know, I'm going to shoot a portrait, I'll pull out my 85mm or my 105 because that's what I'd shoot portraits with. Maybe you're shooting a kids party and you want to get all the way in there, so maybe choosing a 50mm or 35mm so you get in close, it's going to give a completely different feeling. Or maybe you're going to be shooting high fashion and you're like, oh, I'm going to stand way back and put on a 200mm for this. Or maybe you just want to mix it up and try something new. But always actually decide on the lens through a decision as opposed to just because. Okay, now item number 6, this is camera settings. Now, we always have to think about the settings. First of all, set that white balance and then look at the exposure triangle. And what we talk about with the exposure triangle is we're looking at our shutter speed, our aperture, and our ISO. We want to get a perfect exposure, and how are we going to achieve this? Now, we might not actually set everything up on the camera because we need to get the lighting right first. However, we can think about how we're going to do our settings. So we know that if we use the shutter speed, that will change the feeling of the image as opposed to using the ISO or the f-stop for the depth of field. So decide what the final feeling is going to be and work with the exposure triangle just there. Okay, item number 7, this is really simple. Make sure your camera is set to RAW. If you're not shooting RAW, start shooting RAW today. You will see a huge increase in your photography because your post-production is going to skyrocket. Really, it's very important. Okay, before we jump on to number 8, if you want to get this list that you can download and then you can use this as a checklist when you're on a shoot, just head over to photosincolor.com, sign up for my email list. I'll send you this list, and on top of that, I'm also going to send you a free guide to travel photography. It's awesome. Okay, so let's jump on to item number 8. It's starting to look at the lighting. Let's have a look at the key light. Where is the light actually coming from, and what type of light is it? Is it a hard light or a soft light? Is it the sun? Is it through shade? Maybe it's coming from a window. Maybe you're shooting in a studio and you have some studio lights. Think about your key light and how that's going to affect your subject. Now, the next one, which is number 9, and a lot of people seem to forget about this, shadows. Think about the shadows. How is the shadows affecting the image or the subject? Do you want to reduce the shadows? Maybe you want to use the shadows and manipulate them to add a different effect. Always remember, look at your key light and your highlights, but also take care of those shadows. Don't just ignore the dark side of things. Okay, number 10, we have everything set up, but what about the subject? This is when we have to think, is the subject prepared? So maybe you've got a model. We've done all of this work to get ourselves ready. We just don't want to jump in and shoot. We have to make sure the model is ready. But maybe we're a landscape photographer. Is the landscape prepared? Maybe it's a sunset shot. Maybe you need to wait for 30 minutes for that light to be absolutely perfect. Maybe you're a still life photographer and you're photographing a soda bottle. Well, is that soda bottle sweating? Is it prepared so you get that bead of water coming down? If not, make sure that you actually start preparing that. So that was number 10, make sure the subject is prepared. Number 11, finally, take a test shot. So we're gonna click that shutter, we're gonna do a test shot, view your histogram, make sure your exposure is correct, and now go back on all those other things and make any changes you need to make before you continue with the shoot. So the test shot's right, the exposure's right, your lighting's right, you know what you want it to look like. The next thing is starting to look at the poses or your angle choice. So go to a shoot prepared with this. Don't just go, oh, we're gonna jump and try all these different angles. Of course, you're gonna experiment on the shoot, but take a moment beforehand to plan all of those different angles, or who are you shooting and do you have specific poses that you can use with them? So always show up prepared. Okay, number 13, are there any plans for post-production? What are you gonna do with this image? Because if you're gonna drop it into Lightroom, you're gonna shoot raw, well, that's fantastic. But maybe you're gonna do some photo manipulation. Maybe it's gonna be a composite shot. Well, if it's gonna be a composite, what is it gonna be added to, or are you gonna add to it? And therefore, you wanna have that in mind when you're shooting so that you're getting all the information into that file that you can before you even get into post-production. Okay, and the final one is number 14, something that I need to do a lot, and I need to do a lot in my YouTube videos too, and that is take a moment to breathe. So we've got all of these settings, we've prepared our model or our subject, our lighting's correct, we know what the final image we really want it to be, we've got our mood board set so we know the feeling of it, we've used our exposure triangle to make sure the image that we're delivering has the correct feeling and everything. Now just take a minute, think about the shoot that you want to be on, and then get your camera, and then go on and enjoy the shoot. Because that's why we do it. We want to do it because we actually enjoy what we're doing. Okay, so that there is the 14 things that you should do before you even take a photograph. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and definitely subscribe to my channel because I've got loads more content coming in the future. This was Ed Gregory for photosincolor.com. Woo! One take.